Hi, thanks again everybody for actively participating in the big meeting this morning. It makes it so much more enjoyable for me once everybody participates, and I'm hoping that everybody is going to be at some level making some changes in their business in terms of process mapping it, systemizing it, whichever word you're most comfortable with. And I realized that, and this is on reflection of some of the questions coming through, that possibly I was missing one diagram, which is really taking you and explaining from step 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And certainly if you're going to be talking to your staff and getting them on board with the process of systemization, which you should be, then I thought that diagram would be useful. So living according to the word I put out there, I've gone and created a very simple and very fast ebook. And so when you see the ebook, now you know it's in context of what. If for some reason you're watching this video at some other time in the future and it's out of context and you want to know what the ebook's all about, just message me and I'll get the ebook over to you. Cheers. Good luck with the process. Struggling to everybody, really struggling to share the Zoom recording to Lindley that she missed because she was busy sleeping. That's the big check-in last week, and we covered off the one interesting aspect was the ebook that you've done with Stephanie. So it would be good. I don't think you've got it live yet, but Lindley would like to have a look at it. So I don't know if you can show it now or email it to her or something like that. Just so
I can show it. Yep. Find it.
Yep.
I've been working with so my website, the back end of the website will do a lot of the lead magnet stuff I wanted.
Good.
The only thing they didn't do it was if somebody purchased, they didn't have the ability to take them out of the funnel, but they worked on that and they did that yesterday for me. So I've now got the ability to set somebody up to go right through the funnel, and if they purchase, then they come out of it. So I was really pleased about that.
I was really impressed. I went and bought something from Stephanie last week and I had to go away and check on something. So I was away for 2 days and I got an email to say, did you know that your cart is still open? And I've never had that before.
Oh, really?
Mm.
That's actually just something that they do that I haven't even set up, I don't think. I think I had to tick a button to say, do you want this to happen?
Yeah. I knew, I was in the back of my mind to go back there, and I just had to check on my stocks and what I had and that sort of thing. So,
Good.
That's called cart abandonment, and there's big money in cart abandonment. Even on failed orders. So I experienced it years ago with Tony Robbins. So I ordered a product from his website and the freight was as much as the product. So I bailed on the order, and the following day they sent me an email and said, oh, we see you went through and you never purchased it. Could you tell us what the reason was? Was it because of freight? And I said, yes, it was. And they said, we'll give you a discounted freight. And they made the sale. And yes, it's a big thing. Have you got WooCommerce, Lindley?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is actually a cart abandonment plugin you can get. And so you might find, it depends on the numbers of course, but you might find that it's worth chasing people who don't complete. Because obviously if they put stuff in the cart, they did it for a reason.
We had a problem with the charging them freight. If they had an order over $100, it was all sorted in the end, but it's possible that we missed a few orders because of that, because when they went to pay it was like, hang on, it says free freight over $100, and it's just, yeah, so got that sorted. But that would have been good to capture those people.
Yeah, the only issue that we have sometimes is people actually seem to think they've processed the order. Yeah, so we had that the other day. Someone said, oh, but I've paid, I've processed it and blah, blah, blah. And we've got it nowhere. And I looked in the back end everywhere. And so the only thing was they've abandoned a cart and just not Yeah.
Good. So let's keep on going. So Stephanie's just showing the ebook, mostly for Lindley's benefit. She hasn't seen it, but maybe as a memory jog for everybody else. So we'll do this quickly and then we'll move on. So any questions you got, Lindley, fire them away.
So I did it on, was it attract.io?
Yep.
And they have templates, Lindley.
Right.
So really simple. So it was I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and the template system just set it up for me nicely. So yeah, add whatever photos you want and stuff. And you can set your own colours if you've got a colour branding or something.
Mm-hmm. So this is a book that you've written.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah, and then that links through. It does link now, Sean. It links through to my the page that I've got on paper towels.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So just the whole layout was really, really simple to use.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I was quite pleased with it.
Yeah.
Is that in a subscription-based site, the Attract.io?
It would be, but no, I just did that for free.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it allowed me to change all my colours, some of the layout, but it was quite specific. I don't think I could move the pictures around or something, but the general layout was just basic to use.
It's like anything free out there. There's a catch. You know, free. It's relatively simple. It's not a complicated thing. They're going to capture your email address. Stephanie's probably had some emails coming in from them.
Yeah, almost daily.
Yeah.
Which you can unsubscribe if you want to. But it's just an easy way to get into that. If you're not familiar with making e-books and that type of stuff, it's an easy one to start doing.
Yeah.
Because we're just doing a blog at the moment with one of the other staff members about face shapes, and it's going to be quite a lot of work to put it together, but it's probably a bit too long for a blog, but I could do it as a little
what hairstyles suit your face shape or something. Absolutely.
You'll find, Lindley, though, if you do volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, your readership of volume 2 will go up exponentially. Because people hate disconnect. So I can't remember what the principle is called, but there's a principle behind it. I think it's called the Zeiger effect or something, where something, which is why all little sitcoms and stuff, they kind of end on a cliff note, because people want. And so if you do volume 1, volume 2, you'll actually find if you do that with that article, that your readership for the second one will be higher than it would ordinarily.
Wish I'd done more English at school.
Most, to be fair, I think you'll find that most best-selling authors never did well in English, and it's probably the fact that they didn't do well in English has helped them.
Good, guys. Let's jump in. This morning's session is a classroom session, and it's all on processing your business or systemization. And I've come across both those words. I'd say probably most people talk about business systemization, but I've also come across the terminology about processing your business. So if I use those words interchangeably, that's pretty much the same thing. And the first part I want to head off on is, if I can get this to change page, which for some reason, there we go, is passing through credits. So there's little that I've invented in my life in terms of original thought. Everything gets influenced by everything else, as we do. So these are 3 books and methodologies that really have influenced where I am. So it'll be interesting to see who has exposed themselves to these books. The E-Myth, I think just about everybody is familiar with. Michael Gerber.
Yep.
And his big thing was that phrase about working on the business instead of in the business. Eli or something, Goldratt, which is a goal. I love reading that, and that's really about the theory of constraints, but very much about systemization. If you haven't read or listened to that book, get it. It's an old one. It's a bit of a fable. It's like really easy to absorb, super easy.
I did that one in the my MBA with Massey University.
Okay.
There was 2 of his books.
Yep.
He was a bit of a legend.
Yes.
Who?
That's right.
What's his first name? I can't.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
It's a funny spelling. It's
You can't miss it. Just put in the goal. You'll find it. Trust me.
yeah, it's
been around
spelled
forever.
Elryahu. Elihu. I don't know. Is that Jewish or something like that? He looks a bit. Maybe.
He's Jewish. Yeah, he's passed on now, but he was really changed the game for a lot of people in the way that in some of his methods.
So I found that book in terms of creating the why, answering the why of why you want to systemize your business. That message came through very, very clearly. And the last one there, David Genian, he's an Australian guy, and his business is called Systemology. He's been operating for quite a few years, and he's quite strongly linked with Michael Gerber and the E-Myth, so they're sort of on a similar plateau. Who has not read any of those books? Everybody's read some of it.
I've read half of the E-Myth.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Brian. I think I read half the E-Myth as well.
The second half's better.
I've got it sitting next to my bed.
One thing I can tell you, because I have read it and a number of Michael Gerber's books. In fact, I'm reading one at the moment, which is called The CFO. Michael Gerber's on the Chief Financial Officer. And there's one where he did a recording in Australia. I think you'd better get it on, probably from the Auckland Libraries on audio. If not, it'll be someone that's much better, easy to consume. It's actually him talking to a crowd about the E-Myth. And I think it's called The E-Myth Revisited.
Oh, that's the one I've got. Oh,
I think that, yeah, there's one where he's in Australia talking, and it's much easier to understand and get your head around.
Yeah, audiobooks are my type of thing.
Yeah. Good. So Sam's going to be presenting his audiobook pretty soon.
The Billionaire.
The other one.
The Great Game of Business.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
I can do that.
Yeah.
What's that?
I love it. It's an excellent one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first question is not the one on the screen there. Have you guys all downloaded the PDF documents I sent out?
Yeah.
Yep. Good. I don't need to put it in the chat. Everybody's got access to it.
Where is it?
I didn't download it.
Where did you send it?
I emailed it.
I can't remember which folder I put it in, but I'll try and find it.
I'll just go look for it quickly again.
Got it. Okay.
So my first question to you, and it's really framing up the why, is why would you consider processing or systemizing your business? What would it benefit you in your business?
So that if you can't work, somebody else can just pick up
Good.
where you left off.
And
To
why
save you some headspace.
And Lindy, why is that important to you?
Why is it important to me? Well, it gives me a, if something did happen, but also it gives me a sale of business. Makes my business worth a lot more money,
Yep.
Especially for somebody who's not a hairdresser as well.
Good.
So I can take my 4 months off a year.
Excellent.
So I'm going on holiday and it doesn't impact my business. There you go.
I would say the primary reason is around consistency. So it's around creating a consistent outcome for your customer.
Good.
So like think of McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's in Gore, or McDonald's in Warkworth, in theory, you're going to get the same burger, the same level of service, the same level of cleanliness, etc., etc. If you go to a random Italian or Thai restaurant in Warkworth and one in Gore, you're going to get a totally different experience.
Good. Anything else from anybody?
I said improving efficiencies.
Yep.
Make things operate more efficiently.
Good. And quick show of hands, you got 10 fingers. How far are you guys? Like naught, no progress, 10, fully systemized. Where are you in your businesses?
5.
Good. Okay.
Toby, I can't believe that you're only at 2.
Well, I mean, we have a process, but it's not fully documented. It's partly documented.
Good. Well, the good news, guys, you're in the right room. Hey, how's that? Because we'll cover that today. So these are the reasons where I would put down and say it's not exhaustive. There's more to do with it. Is number one, I say, is the business owner the business doesn't become a slave. The business owner doesn't become a slave to the business. And you guys know this for sure. This is typical in the SME sector. The guys go into business because there's an opportunity and they never get off the tools. Or even if they do get off the tools and they move up in the business is constantly draining them of their time. They never get time away. Person dependency, this is one of the biggest factors, and where we talk about efficiency. Person dependency is not only talking about the business owner, but as your business grows and you get more staff on board, it's making sure that the business is never reliant on any one single employee. Really, really important. Number 3, and this is what we also covered off when we had the Kaizen, and I see my screen's gone a bit weird. So if it looks like I've got chicken pox, it's not that.
Looks fine.
Your mask.
Yes, I'm changing. But systemizing your business is about highlighting bottlenecks or muda. The reason why the business owner is so involved in the business is because he's covering up for all the mistakes and problems that are actually lying in the business. Number 4, it commits you to working on the business. So I know when I talk to most of you guys, you all say, oh, you know you should be working on the business and you're trying to make it if you're trying to do more of it. Well, as soon as you start systemizing your business, it forces you to go down this path, which is really good. Instead of me forcing you, the process forces you. And number 5, selling the business. So when you come to sell the business, and Toby, you've got a first-hand example of that, often the question that somebody will ask you is, what systems do we have in place? And the more the business is systemized, the easier it is for somebody to actually buy the business and run with it. There's not a steep learning curve for them. The more the business is systemized, it means there's less reliance on any one worker. So often when you're going to buy a business or somebody's looking at buying your business, they'll be saying to themselves, well, what happens if this person leaves? Then I'm up the creek without a paddle, and what the hell do I do? If the process is systemized, even if that person leaves and you have to get somebody else in, it's very easy to onboard them and get them up to speed. And I nearly added a 6th one here, and I was thinking of yourself, Daniel. It is, if you've got ambitions to start franchising the business or having more branches or something like that, that's obviously crucially important as well. And in your form there, what Bart says, if you don't own the business and the business owns you, if you don't systemize your business, the business will own you.
Maybe you could stop your video and start it again.
Have you had enough of it listening or looking at his face?
Isn't it?
It's like the heat.
I'm actually quietly concerned that Sean doesn't watch enough Simpsons because that's actually Homer, not Bart.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. You're back.
We'll see how long it lasts. So, for the guys that have been with part of the group for a long time, you would have seen something similar to this when we did the soap and the strategy. And what this is showing is how a typical business grows, and it's putting to context now also systemization. So, and every industry, every business is different, but usually when you're operating in that sort of $100,000 to $300,000 sort of turnover region, we call ourselves solopreneurs. We may be operating ourselves, or we may have one or two subcontractors or employees or something like that. Then we go through another period where we've got, you know, a handful of staff, and we're usually going up to about that $1 million of turnover. And then we go to where we start forming department heads. And this journey is very similar to what I faced when I was running ASPL as well. So suddenly you got chief bottle washers in this period over here. And this last period over here, which could be sort of $5 million onwards, and where I put you a heart attack or freedom, this is really the part where the business can truly start scaling. And unless you start actually systemizing the business, as a business owner, you just get wound into the ground because you just take more on and more on and more on and more stress, more responsibility. So it's the further you go up this stream here, the more important it is to actually start systemizing your business.
Bobby's trying to say.
Is that figure turnover, or is that personal income?
No, that's very much turnover of the business. But obviously,
5 million income, yes, please.
Yeah, it's obviously different for different industries.
If you work for Watercare, you could.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And what you'll find happening as we're going through these periods, we've always got these little things over here. So whether you call them glass ceilings, but they really are critical pivot points of where we're going. And often you'll find that you get to the level, and I know you guys are finding this as well, that you grow to a level and you're just starting to make some money, you're just starting to get into a point of profitability, and you say, well, I need to employ somebody else, I need to do this. But you know, if you're going to do it, you're probably going to go into negative profit territory as well. And sometimes that stops us. Sam, for example, the other Sam, the Tyler, he couldn't make it this morning. He's in a situation where he's sort of down over here, and he needs to jump this hurdle over here. But as a tiler, he's busy tiling, and he's got this difficult, you know, quandrum of how does he go about employing a tiler when he doesn't have enough business to you know, to feed the employees. So these are always critical moments, and they're sort of at these sort of periods over here. Now, the reality is, if we look at how we manage a situation, often the people just keep on going at this level. And I'll take Sam the Tyler as an example here. No, he will be happy. He doesn't mind me saying this. He's been operating on this level here for a number of years. And at some point, he's going to hit a brick wall. And when I say a brick wall, he's going to run out of motivation. He's going to run out of steam. He's going to get demotivated with the business. He's going to get frustrated with the business, or he's going to sell the business. Or he's going to keep on doing it for the next 50 years. And after 50 years, he's going to say, well, that was a satisfying life. So some people end up going there and hitting the walls. Other people, they don't adopt or adapt to the situation, and they just end up going backwards, or you have to actually migrate up. Now, the key point, and this is where the systemization part comes in, and a number of you are at this level over here. Systemization in your business is not required. Full stop, it's not required. And the reason why I'm saying it's not required is because at this level here, you're still trying to figure out what works in the business. You're still trying to figure out what do I need to do to make this business profitable? How do I communicate with my customers? How do I onboard them? How do I do this? How do I do that? If you're in a situation like you're going along here, absolutely you need to start thinking about systemization. But this period over here is not necessary. But I'm going to contradict myself to say that even if you are in this period, you should still be looking at systemization to understand what you are doing is going to align with systemizing my business in the future. So as soon as you started to figure out, for example, Andrew, over the last 2 years, you know, your expertise in Facebook is phenomenal. And you're getting to the point now where you can say, okay, I really got a handle on this, even though it's really frustrating and I get these curve balls coming in, but I can probably start systemizing that aspect of the business so that I can hand it over to somebody else. But a year ago, 2 years ago, it would have been a lot more difficult to actually do that. So you have to have your, what's the wording? I'd say proof, evidence that what you're doing is the right thing you're doing. And as soon as you can tick the box and say, yep, this is right, then I can start thinking about systemization. Does that make sense to everybody?
Very much.
It does.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Good. So for those of you that are still operating down here, I'm not saying log off now and sign off. Still continue going down this, because you should understand what the whole journey looks like, and you should start thinking at this point here, how am I needing to structure my business and my thinking so that I can systemize my business, and when I get more staff and more employees on board. And again, if I look at, I'll go back to my own example. When I started my company, it's called Fitting Supplies. So I started down here at Fitting Supplies, and round about here, which is probably around the $400,000 mark, maybe $500,000, we employed our first employee. We're about over here, 1.2 million, we employed our first rep on the road. But really, right until probably at this level here, probably around about here somewhere, the business was extremely reliant on me. So my leave days just accumulated. I never went on leave. And I always justified that I love doing what I'm doing. You know, I love coming to work, and I did it. I found it hugely satisfying. But the reality is, by the time I got to this level over here, I was knackered. I was really, really knackered. And it's because I hadn't focused enough on exiting myself out of the business. My whole thinking was not right. So when you start mapping the process, that's really what I have covered off there already. You need to start that as soon as possible, but it's really once you've got the proof of concept nailed. Going on to this one over here, yeah, just re-emphasizing, I can go through a slide because I really explained this. This is really much about sort of survival phase when you're getting the proof of concept busy working. Generally, you find we've got these periods here where we're stationary, which are those glass ceilings. And the last thing over here is this is when we're scaling the business. So we have these mini periods of when we scale, and we hit a glass ceiling, scale, glass ceiling, and it continues like this all the way up. So again, once you start connecting with other business owners, which some of you probably do, you'll find that some of them are maybe even sitting at like a $20 million mark, you know, and when you're only doing $1 million yourself and you look at somebody at $20 million, you think, oh, they really made it. But then you start having a chat with them and you realize they've been at that level for about 5 years and they've hit the glass ceiling, they just can't get through it. You know, and again, it comes down to systemization, systemization, systemization. The way to get through these periods over here is systemization. And the systems that you develop over here or over here may not be exactly the right systems that you need over here. So you need to continually be refining those processes and systems. So the first process of how we go about this is we need to look at what we call the critical steps in terms of the customer journey. And you may have done this exercise in another format somewhere else. But this would be an example of a typical customer journey, where we say the business generates a whole lot of leads at one point, and those leads eventually turn into, for example, an inquiry, and then we have a sale, and then maybe we exchange some money, and then we deliver whatever we're delivering, and then we go through a process of repeating that cycle, or are they one-off customers, or are they long-term customers, they keep coming back. So this would be a typical journey that any customer would go through in terms of your business. Just making sure I don't lose track of my notes. So if we look at, again, my company, ASPL, so when I did this exercise, we had, for example, lead generation was really by the web traffic, a rep was developing relationships, and then we went to trade shows. And you can add more here if you want to, but I'm suggesting just put 3 of your main ones, following the 80-20 rule. If you only have 1, that's fine, just put 1 down. The inquiry was the rep would go visit the prospect, somebody would phone, somebody would send a web order, or somebody would actually just walk in the door. Then the sale process was really broken up into a discovery stage, a proposal was given, a follow-up was done, and then an order was loaded. So depending on the size of the order, it depends how deep we got into this. Then we would go through a process of, let's move this out of the way, scheduling and communicating. So we had to schedule the order, and then we had to communicate that order within the internal team and back to the customer. Then we start a manufacturing process, and then a dispatch, and then we take payment, and then we would nurture. So this is at a very high level, following the 80-20 rule, of how ASPL would operate. So what I want you to do in the printout that you've got there, for you right now, as we in this meeting, for you to write out what your high level look is in terms of the customer flow through your business. And if there are any questions, ask the questions, because somebody else may have the same question. Remembering to keep it at a high level. Don't get too nitty-gritty with the detail. Has anybody done this process already in their business? Toby, good. Would anybody like to share what they've done?
I'll go.
But I'm worried everybody's like playing noughts and crosses on their paper.
Oh, can't see it. That's right. So mine.
Good.
See that?
Yep.
So it's pretty simple, really, because my sales cycle is so short.
Yep.
It's getting in traffic from LinkedIn. What else we got there? web or web searches and other relationships.
Yep.
Next is a phone call. At the end of that phone call, they'll either say yes, or I'll send them a summary sheet of our lead generation product.
Yep.
And within, it's usually after the phone call after that, they'll say yes. Very high hit rate for us, fortunately, which is really cool. Then we send them an onboarding form where they give us all their details to populate all the fields that we have. They give us money and we repeat.
Excellent. Good. Anybody else want to share theirs? Or anybody struggling on theirs?
Mine would just be the sales side, Sean. I guess people inquiry easy, what we do for delivery easy. So we gain people via web traffic or I guess word of mouth. Yep. Be our two main ones right now. That probably including BNI.
Yep.
And then the inquiry for us is either a phone call, email, or walk-in.
Yep.
I'd put doctors as well, actually. Doctor referrals is the other lead generation. Then the sales side for us, it's all kind of part of the inquiry for us, really, but that's normally once someone comes, they're coming. So, yeah, but I'd probably, with yours, with follow-up and things, I'd probably move, for me, that would be in our delivery phase, giving our service and then the follow-up from that service.
Yep.
To make them repeat customers, really.
Yep. Good. Is anybody else struggling with it or got any questions?
I can read mine if you want.
Yep.
Not sure if you can see it. Can you see that?
Yep.
So we've got like the web inquiries, referral network, and social media at the top as our lead generation. Inquiry goes from phone call and emails, how we get our inquiries. I do a site visit and a quote. We send a proposal. We send a deposit. We do our project manager does a site assessment. We complete the work in the delivery section. We sign off the job. We get we pay. We send the invoice. We do reviews and we follow up. And then we put them in our nurture.
Good.
System.
Yep. Good. Okay. So hopefully everybody agrees that at this point this process is really, really simple. And so it's just high level understanding from a customer's point of view how they would move through your intestine of your business, stage to stage to stage. No, any questions on this? Can we move on to the next one? Because it's relatively straightforward. Good. The next stage is start looking at key departments. So if you now think of your business as, and this is where it gets a little bit difficult if you're a one-man band, but think of the bigger picture. In terms of your business, what would the potential departments be within your business? And I'll put in here a typical established business with a marketing, sales, operations, finances, HR, and a management function. And then what we're wanting to do is we want to start itemizing what are the key responsibilities of that department, who is the head person, and who is the knowledge person. So, and again, just to illustrate that, explain that, I'll go through what I did at ASPL. So this would be ASPL. So we had those functions, marketing, sales, operations, etc. If we look at the responsibilities of the marketing department, it's really around about branding, SEO, AdWords, print media, trade shows, brochures, and catalogs. The head person was myself. In other words, who's overall responsible for the performance of this marketing. And then the knowledge person, this is where you have to start extracting yourself from the business. If I put myself down here as a knowledge person in all these areas, I'll never get out of the business. So when I did this exercise at the sort of $5 million mark, it was easy for me to do it because I had a whole bunch of employees that I could start allocating to that. And the knowledge person is those people that have specialist knowledge in this area that are really, really good with it. Maybe you've employed them for this, or you've employed them for another function, but you find that they're really, really good at SEO, as an example. And it's like the knowledge person, even though he's a welder, he's really good at SEO. So, you know, make him the knowledge person of SEO. So again, I want you to, on your printout, is to start itemizing what your departments would be. What are the key responsibilities? This is the really important part. And then who is the head person and the knowledge person within that. Now, the challenge for the likes of the smaller businesses, you know, whether it's Angela or Andrew or even Toby, where you've only got subcontractors, you're not going to be able to fill a lot in here in terms of these areas over here. But if you've got ambitions to say, look, I really want to take the business from $200,000 to $1 million, you could start thinking about, you know, in 1 year's time, I'm going to be employing people, and those people would fill these functions. So, for example, if I was going to grow the business and I didn't have somebody doing operations, I could just say a new person over here. But the most important part is putting this area here, the responsibilities for these different departments. Same for you, Daniel. Thinking 1 year's time, 2 years' time, what are those new roles that you'll be employing? And even if you put on your sheet, okay, this is 1 year's time or 2 years' time, so you know what the timeline is relevant to. Any questions on that?
I think I'll just be using stiff.
Yeah.
It's not good.
I guess when you talk about using yourself over and over, because I'm looking at this thinking Brad, Karen. I suppose that's, like you said, Sean, at points in the positions where you will see where you need to develop your staff,
Yep.
to move into those roles and give them more a future, more than just being on the tools themselves.
Yep. That's right. So especially if you're going to be employing people, they're all looking for opportunities of where they can grow in terms of their own career. So they're looking for these opportunities. And the reality is, if you've got Brad, Karen written all over here, good luck on taking any leave. For somebody like Angela, who's, you know, is sort of starting out on a new journey at the moment, again, I would be looking at what does it look like in 2 years' time, and putting that down. So at least you've got a target to which you're heading towards. Jason, this should be easier for you.
Yeah, just trying to look at the sort of segmenting it slightly different than I currently have it.
Yeah. Should be easier for Sam as well, and for Steve.
What are JVs?
Joint ventures.
What do
The
we
top
do?
heading should be the same for everyone, or essentially the same for most people, shouldn't they?
So ask it again.
The top headings like marketing, sales, operations, etc.
Yep.
Are they pretty standard, or?
That is pretty standard. If you got something different, it'd be good to look at it, but that would be pretty standard, yeah. And again, you know, when we challenge ourselves all the time in terms of working on the business and not in the business, you know, and we'll probably find that as solopreneurs, or you got 1 or 2 employees, like you probably acknowledge yourself like, shit, I just don't spend enough time in some of these roles. I tend to do what I really enjoy doing, which is digging holes. So is whenever I get a opportunity, I dig holes, and I know that I'm not doing the management or the finance or HR or something like that.
The suppliers one, Sean.
Yep.
Is that kind of, I guess, from a product or a service point of view? Is that still meaning suppliers in terms of the people that sell us our physio stuff? Or
I didn't find suppliers really suited me that well because, like, I just buy paint from the Dulux store and it's just there. So I didn't really put anything into suppliers.
Yeah.
I'd say on that, Sam, that's where you need to have who your rep is, what rates you get, et cetera, et cetera. So, because you use Resine as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you should have a document that says, you know, Joe Smith, his phone number for Resine, blah, 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 who the reps are, who the point of contact is, what your rates are, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Toby's saying there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so
that we do, yeah.
So that 100% is supplies from the outside, like product development for us is.
Yeah.
But I definitely can have a list like Toby just mentioned with these different competitions for who we buy from.
Yeah, and I think, you know, every business is different, and the nice thing here is you can make this to suit yourself. So the suppliers for Brad's business is probably less important, but for example, on Jacob's business, it's really important because Jacob is selling a product, and he could have one supply or he could have suppliers. Another one here is for Stephanie. You know, we've been working really hard on that for the last 6 weeks in terms of developing those supplier relationships, because you get that right or you get it wrong is going to determine whether Stephanie's still in business or not. For Angela, probably less important, suppliers.
Yeah, but sometimes in a smaller business though, if it's a larger client, they want to know that you've got a team behind you, that you're not just a solo consultant. And sometimes though it can be quite empowering having a colleague, you call them a supplier of services, that you can take along to a pitch meeting or to demonstrate at a workshop what you can do. So yes, they are I would use the word partners in there as well.
Yep.
Because partners are loosely associated with your business, and you may even put them on your website, but you might not. You might be running two completely different businesses, but similar types of services.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe Angela, you just change the word suppliers to partners. Good. Is anybody really stuck, or is anybody wanting to share what they've got for everybody's benefit?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing.
Good.
I have got my name on here a lot, but I guess there's sort of 2-3 key areas that other staff are working in.
Yep.
So around the sales and the operations, that's where everyone's involved. But the rest of it, the sort of marketing, finance, HR, management, that's all me. So yeah, I know where I was on that graph that you were doing, that you did.
Yeah. And what have you got down for the area of responsibilities in those different blocks?
You mean the knowledge person?
No, in see the first row here?
Oh yeah, sorry. So under marketing,
yep.
I've got SEO, website, social media and brochures.
Good.
Under sales, quoting, inquiries and phone calls. Operations, I've got packing, ordering stock, track and tracing.
Yep.
Suppliers, relationships, bring on new suppliers, sourcing new product. Finance, invoicing, reporting, wages, accounts payable. HR, I've got team building and employing new staff. Management, budgeting and reports.
Good. Excellent.
Head person, I've just got myself.
That's okay. And for you, for all of you that have gone through the strategy program, you probably know where this responsibility is going. And where that's going is to say, for me to excel in this business, I need to develop excellence in all these areas of responsibility. That's why we're starting to itemize them at this point. Good. So just to reiterate where we are on this one here, we're starting this process by looking at a very high level, and then we're just going to chunk it down into the smaller bite-sizable pieces we're actually going to start doing the actual work in it. Everybody understands the process up until now?
Yep.
Yes.
So the next, I think this could be the last page on your handouts there, is we start looking at this from...
There's another one, system KPIs after this one.
Oh, that one, okay. So we want to start looking at the department level in terms of the name of the department, the system and the description, and then the knowledge person. So that's what the sheet is you got there. And again, if I look at an example to put into context, we look at ASPL. If we took, for example, the marketing department and we said, okay, there is, remember those, the thing we called responsibilities, branding, SEO, AdWords, boom, boom. What is the overall description we will put down for it? So right now, we're not going to go through each one of your departments and nail it out. But what I would like you to do is take one of the departments that you're reasonably comfortable with and follow through with this process, writing it on your piece of paper. Pretty much like I've done here, but for your business. As we move on, every stage asks for a little bit more brain power. And at this point, once you guys are finished, I would like more of you to be reading through what you've got. And again, this is for the benefit of everybody else. So whoever's finished, you can raise your hand first and you can start reading through what you've got.
I thought you said it was homework. I didn't start.
So just take one of your departments and nut it out. Your homework is to do the whole company.
Okay.
So even if we go back to how we started this morning, and Stephanie was sharing her ebook, you know, when you start writing an article or an ebook or something like that, the tough way to do it is sit down on the computer with a blank piece of paper and start typing. It's really, really difficult. The easier way to start is actually start putting down a title of the book. And it may not be the final one, and you'll go and change it, but start with the title. This is sort of, the description is like a title. What are we going to cover in this book? So in this example, branding, what's the overall description? And then it's a lot easier to talk into it and to write about it.
Just following up on that, brain dumping was quite good too. Just dumping all that stuff. You don't have to write the story to start with.
Yep, that's right. Who's done theirs? Who wants to read out?
I've done 2 aspects, like of one department.
Okay.
Let's start on sales.
Okay.
So one of those is inquiries. So you might get an email inquiry, find the answer. So if we don't know the answer, reply. I mean, if you know the answer, reply straight away. Otherwise, you need to go off, get the answer, and then reply, and then follow up. Okay. With the customer. And phone calls, it's pretty much the same sort of thing. If you can answer straight away, do that, or take their details, get the answers, and call them back. Quote if required, and then take the order.
Good. So Stephanie has gone maybe one level deeper than where I'm even at the moment, in terms of you giving an actual explanation of it, as opposed to just a description. So.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. So not that it's necessarily bad, but sometimes easier if you just work on the description first. So for example, if you look at what's on the screen, the marketing department, we have to do branding. What does it mean we have to do branding? To do branding, it means we have to have consistent use of the logo, the footers, the headers. Once we go into the details of that, for example, consistent use of the logo, we'll start having some rules around that. You know, nobody must change the color of the logo. Nobody must change the aspect or the ratio of the logo. Logo should never be used on this or should be used on that, etc. The actual details of it. So just remember, we're chunking from high level down, 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 down. Who else would like to go through some examples of what they've got?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Working on the training departments, the delivery of our courses. So at the moment, sort of 3 key systems. One is the course delivery itself. One is the assessment marking, so actually the marking of assessments, and processing of student information or student processing. So for student processing, I'll just put headings there, paperwork completion, capturing required images, and loading or entering student information in our student management system.
Yep.
Course delivery, the planning, course planning, student relationships, and practical exercises or practical delivery.
Good.
That's sort of where it's at, just trying to break it down into
excellent
sections.
Good. That's good. Anybody else? What have you got, Andrew?
Blank sheet so far.
Ah.
I'm trying to separate things in my head between my business and the business of getting leads.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I have 2 of everything. It runs in parallel. So I've got marketing, but I've got marketing of Focus Media and marketing of my other brands which generate leads. So I guess that could be the same person just doing 2 jobs for multiple different brands.
Mm.
Say that again, because I'm beginning to conceptualize it.
So essentially, I'm marketing
Marketing.
4 different businesses. So I'm
No.
marketing focus media to generate more clients for focus media.
Yep.
But also in the operation side of things, I'm marketing my lead generation brands. So the roofing brand, the insurance brand, whatever other brands I end up having.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a parallel there.
Yes.
But then I'm also looking at trying to conceptualize what it looks like if the knowledge person is actually a piece of software.
Yeah.
So for invoicing and things like that, I'd love to get away from actually having to log into Xero each time to send an invoice and reconcile that. We can automate that all through software.
Yeah.
So then where does that lie? Does it lie in finance invoicing, or does it lie in operations? Somebody has to develop that software for me.
Can I show something? Can I share my screen? That, I mean, I imagine Daniel's seen all this sort of stuff before, but if I share my screen, this might help some people. I hate how it doesn't it? But basically what I've done is I've just set up a site and basically just divided it down into the different team members that I have, and then basically under those, I haven't completed it all, but you know, so what happens as an example is click on first email. This is the task, so put in what the actual task is, and then put in what the actual email is.
Right.
So that's kind of how I'm starting. So I've kind of done umbrella, and then I'm adding it to, so in the conversation today, I've added in suppliers and branding under admin, and basically just setting it up like that. So this will basically be a whole website where everything, everyone's roles, everyone thinks is all in here. And then I can then I will lock off certain areas so only certain people can see certain stuff.
Right.
I don't know if that's any use to you, but that's kind of how I've been doing it. So you know,
Looks good.
here's the design requirements, e-commerce requirements, the first email, the last email, and so on. So that, because what I've found is that people in my business anyway, we agree, or I provide them with documentation, and then they morph it to how they want it to be instead of how I want it to be. But now I have this, I can say, well, here it is, you know.
Mm.
There you go, Linley. That's 2 out of 10 on Toby's setup of his systems. You got to build a whole website. You're only at level 2.
Hey, Toby, can I just ask you a question? How do you lock it out from certain people, or how do you give certain accesses?
Yeah. So, because I started to do this on Google.
I've done it on Google Sites as well. That's what I've done.
Yeah.
Google Sites.
And I found it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So you can actually, so then I just created a WordPress install. So this is just with WordPress, with Divi, and so you can get a plugin, and then you can assign people to pages with a plugin. Yeah. So that's why I went this route, because I did a lot of work on the Google website, and then it didn't allow me also on the Google website. I couldn't figure out how to truncate it. So in other words, create a mega menu. So I wanted it to be all like, this is the top level and these are the sub levels. Yep. You couldn't do that with, well, at least I couldn't figure out how to do it cleanly with Google website.
Good. So the aspect that Toby's talking into and Daniel's asking as well is what I'll get into next. I just want to step back one step, and the concern I would have is I really encourage you to take it from a chunking point of view. So we start at a very high level and we're chunking down. It's really important that you get the description right, because this is after this is the content of how you'd actually do it. For many people, if you just get straight into the content of it, it's such a big task that it never happens, or we never quite get through it. Everything that we're doing at the moment, I would recommend in real life, you'll do this on a piece of paper. Do it on a piece of paper until the point at which you need to itemize detail of everything, and then you can go straight into a document or a website or something like that, which we'll do next. Yeah. But just everything on paper is a high level point of view, getting down to the point before we actually have to go into a computer and actually do it on a computer. Is there anybody else who want to share what they've got in terms of their one department? What about Steve? No, not Steve.
Maybe not.
What have you got, Daniel?
I've only just started doing it now, but I was kind of copying yours a little bit for the marketing department.
Okay.
So these are all things that I've been thinking about. Definitely branding, you know, with sign writing on vehicles, signage, on-site signage, how to use the logo. Because my business came with, when I bought it, there was already branding, and I went away from one color of branding and took on the secondary color of branding as my primary color. And so I've had to make sure that people aren't going back to the old branding. Yeah, I'm just going through getting new business cards printed at the moment. So I've been going through that, and new quote folders printed at the moment as well. So yeah.
Good. Excellent. So that's good feedback, Daniel. And again, I'll reiterate, if you follow the process, the steps that I'm explaining here, you won't leave any holes in the system, because we're starting at a very high level and we're taking down. And by the time you get to the end of the process, you would have nailed every potential process will be itemized. And this is why I resist the temptation of going into too much detail, because as soon as you get into too much detail, the job becomes bigger than Ben-Hur, and then you'll find you'll leave gaps everywhere. Does anybody else want to share, or else I will move on? And when I say want to share, it's because other people benefit from it, or else you're not 100% sure that you've nailed it yet. Good. I'm going to move on. So the next stage is going on where Toby was talking about. The next process is, now that you've got the description, what we're wanting to do is we want to start having a detailed description of that description. So for example, if I look at the first one, I've already given an example. So let's take the next one. Optimize company websites. So from an SEO point of view, how do we go about optimizing the company website? So you would go to the knowledge person, which you've already identified who it is. In this case, it's Michelle. And I'll say, look, Michelle, what I want you to do is I would like you to write a document about how you go about optimizing the company website. And she'll say, absolutely, I know how to about it. Or she'll say, look, I've got an idea. And I say, well, put that idea down, but take some time off and do some research, go speak to the experts, and let's document how we're going to do it in the company. And she'll say, fantastic. And she'll write this report, which is made up of 100 words or 1,000 words or whatever necessary. And it's itemizing a very step-by-step format of how we go about optimizing our website for the company. Now, once we get to this point, we don't want to be writing things down on a piece of paper. So I would say you either open a separate little Word document or on Google Drive or something like that, or else if you're going to do something customers like Toby's doing, you actually physically go onto your dedicated website, whether it's Google sites or a WordPress site, and you start entering the data. My recommendation is that you would actually start this on something like a Word document. And you would itemize all these Word documents, and once you've got that right, and you're going to do something like Toby's doing, I would just be doing, copy the text in the document and paste it into my website, you know, and do that as one process. But in the interim, just start writing everything down in a software format. So,
and you just have them shown in folders, like the marketing folder.
Yep.
And then
Yep. So when I try to look for a solution, and I spoke to Toby the other day, and I said to Toby, I think there's an opportunity here for you, in terms of so many people have got a WordPress website, so few people have an intranet, and it would be really good for a company to have an intranet service on their website, which is this process. So as an illustration, I'm going to show you what I started doing. Let's open it up. So I've, for example, go into Google Drive here, and I've created a whole bunch of documents here. So if, for example, look at SEO for ABC company, you will get the knowledge person to go write a separate document. So the process is called SEO for the company name. The head person is that. The knowledge person is who that is. And just start writing the process down. Boom. Add your pictures, add whatever it is. And all of this then gets shared on your Google Drive or your folder or whatever you're going to use. It's in one repository. The next stage then says how are you going to use this as internal communication. So if you use something like Google Sites or WordPress, the danger with that is, like Daniel's already said, is how do you make sure that this exactly suits our requirements? And that's the problem with it. So when we go back to who my influences are in terms of this, I mentioned the guy from Australia who does his business is Systemology. So he's got a system that you can subscribe to, but it's going to cost, I don't know, $800 or $1,000 a year, and it's custom software where you can go in and you can do all of this stuff properly, and you can, when people, for example, employees have gone through the process, they can tick it off to say yes, they've read this, they know how to do this, you know. So you've got a really good check process. So definitely, if you're going to franchise a business or something like that, this is something you really want to look at, because it's only $1,000, it's nothing. But for the average business, small business, it's probably not an investment you want to make. And therefore, I would say, look at the solution that Toby can provide, which is like a little customized website, or Google Sites, or something like Lucid. A lot of you know that I make a lot of use of Lucid. So I started playing around with Lucid yesterday to figure out how you could actually do this in Lucid. So if you look at this sheet over here, you can see it's very much along the lines of looking at what the customer flow is. That's how it operates. So now you can imagine if you take on a new staff or contractor or whatever, you can take them through this process. They can visualize it. They can fully understand it. Then you can go into a little bit deeper, and I still haven't completely figured out how to use Lucidchart in this manner, but you can start breaking up the different sectors. For example, attraction, nurture, inquiry, convert. So again, you got the same process or flow down there, and you can start then saying, what's your lead generation mechanism? So again, I've got your trade shows, whatever. The department it belongs to is marketing. And then if you click on this documents, it'll actually take you to the physical document that you stored on Google Drive. So how do you go about trade shows? So the part that I'm showing you here is I don't have a solution for you. You have to find your solution. If you want an out-of-the-box solution, then go use something like System Hub and pay $1,000 a month and go and do it. But for many SMEs, I know that's not going to happen. So the real answer is just find a mechanism where you can actually store this information and it's not going to get lost. You don't just want to have just a folder where everything's in there, because you'll never be able to maintain it. It needs to come back to a central hub of some sort. And that's why having something like the Lucidchart or the website will probably be the best option, is something that you need to look at. Any comments on this?
Do you break down, I'm just thinking like, the old way of doing it was probably like reception and physio, for example. That's within operations, I guess, really. So if you, for example, open the operations folder, you'd have a reception folder and a physio folder, or does that make sense?
Yeah, so like the reception folder, where would it be? It wouldn't be in a tract. So I'm just saying, if you look at the flow of the customer through the company, figure out where that's going to sit. And you'll find that, for example, in here, you may not under track, not everything here will be under marketing. You may have another department in here that is not normally, but for your business it's unique, and you have like a sales function, a sales department in here. So who's in charge of sales? Somebody may be separate that's in charge of sales versus marketing, but they may have a function right in the track side, which is typically not where sales is, if you know what I mean. So whoever's in charge of the department understands where they fit into the whole grand scheme of the company. What I found as well, only once you start nutting this out, do you understand the ramifications of what you're doing. You can look at it now and you can, oh, I get the gist of it, but until you start putting it down on a piece of paper, mapping it out, you suddenly think, oh, what about this? What about that? So that's why it's really important you actually physically do this exercise. Don't just be a bystander on the process. Then, and it's really just a case of really summing up now. We've only got 90 minutes to systemize your business. Here are some sort of final thoughts, final steps. It's really important that you find in your business who is going to be the champion around this. So again, if there's only one or two of you in your business, for sure you're going to be the person. But if you've got more people around you, like Jason, you've got a question here that you need to answer. Should you be that champion, or should it be somebody else? And as soon as you get the staff around you, it's a lot easier, and you'll be more successful if you get somebody else besides yourself as a business owner.
Yeah. So
and that's really, really, really important. So in Sam's situation, you're in a sort of middle ground between where Jason is and a lot of other people are. And if you become the champion for this, it may just come across as the boss wants this other thing. This is his flavor of the month.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got Chris excited about this, you'll get a different result.
I agree.
Yeah. Stephanie, for you, I would say you probably want to find some middle ground, and it'll be a responsibility between you and one of your other ladies that you take on board.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite hard when you've got sort of three people that are essentially doing all the same work to highlight one as a champion.
Yeah. They don't necessarily have to be. They don't have to wear the hats and the cloak, but they are the ones that are going to be pushing it forward, and you want to make sure that they're 100% on board with it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to look for somebody to explain the system, try to put them into that position.
Yeah, I've already got documents that tell people how to do certain elements of the job and stuff, but I can see where you're talking about is going higher up and systemizing the whole business.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. The whole process.
Yeah.
Because even there, you've got ambitions to move out of where you are now in terms of performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then the second part is culture, Kaizen, continual improvement, system thinking, however you want to do it. It's really trying to embed this within the culture of the organization so everybody's thinking along the same lines. So when something goes wrong in the process, very much like Kaizen, instead of blaming the person, we always go back and look at the system and say, well, what did we get wrong? We blame the system. If something goes wrong, something's wrong with the system. And it's either because we've got the wrong system, or we have the wrong metrics in the system, the wrong measuring, the wrong warning bells going off. So always go back to the system, continue refining it. Like a business strategy, like a SOAP or a business plan, if you create it and you just file it, it's not going to add any any benefit. If you're going to start systemizing your business and you're going to, you know, go put this on Google Sheets or however you're going to do it on a separate website, you have to continually refer back to it and make sure we're on the right track. The third one is systematic vacations. This is really, really important. And this is, I gave an example of myself, you know, taking the company up to the first few $1 million. I really enjoyed it, but I found that my leave days were just accumulating. I could have gone on leave for a year if I looked at my leave days I hadn't taken. But the problem was that I was propping up the business in terms of the lack of systems. So the only way to do that is to physically go on leave. Andrew, you're 4 months of leave. And when you look at the department heads per se, they need to do exactly the same. So as soon as somebody goes on leave and you start seeing, I've got all these problems, it's indicating that you're obviously lacking in those areas in terms of systems. You can go and fix it. And the last one there is measure to optimize and refer back to the customer flow map all the time. And when we're talking about measuring to optimize, and that's the last page you got over there, it's just to start brainstorming. And it's not necessarily to add a whole lot more metrics in the business, because some of the metrics you already have, and it's just about compartmentalizing into the right sector. So again, I've given an example here, and you can fill it in your own sheet there. If you look at, for example, lead generation, sales, delivery, and repeat, but you could have all of those processes in the flow. What is the thing I'm going to measure in that sector that's going to indicate whether I'm on track or I'm not on track? Remember, and we say this all the time, what you measure gets attention, and what gets attention grows. And if you look at your business and you say, look, we're really good at doing physiotherapy, the customers walk out and they're on energy. They're like nuclear power stations afterwards. We're doing a fantastic job. It's really, really good. It's really good. Fantastic. But the result is I don't make enough money in the business because I don't have enough people coming to the door, because I'm not spending enough time on the upfront in terms of the marketing, as an example. So pre-thinking what the metrics are in each of those processes we chunk down the business, we have to have valid measurements of what it is you're going to have. And you could be measuring it on a weekly basis or monthly basis. So that's it, because I'm trying to finish at 8:30 and it's 8:23. What I would like you to do is to just spend 3 to 4 minutes filling in a last sheet. What are those details over here for your business? What would you be measuring? And I would like you to share them. Even for someone like Angela, this is really important. What are those measures? How are we going to have them? What are we going to measure? And when you look at businesses that are highly systemized, you take the KFCs and the McDonald's and that type of stuff. Although I never worked for them, I can assure you they would have, the process that we've gone through this morning, they would have gone through this process. The difference is they did it. There's nothing more complicated than this. The most complicated process is just finding how you're going to log this information. So when you look at your critical steps like that on the screen, whatever your critical steps is, for each of those steps, you would like to know that we are excelling in it. And the easiest way to know whether we're excelling in is to have one or more metrics, measurements, that are relevant in this area. Otherwise, you never know whether you are actually excelling in that area.
Where you've got repeat, Sean, does that mean repeat customers or repeating the process?
Generally repeating customers.
Okay.
So it could be customers coming back, or it could be a process of developing referrals. So they would be generating more business for you.
Yeah.
Developing raving fans.
Yeah.
Who would like to share what they've got? Got 3 minutes left. Who hasn't spoken? Steve.
I'm happy to share, get some feedback. It's always been a challenge with our KPIs.
Excellent, and then we'll come back to Steve.
So the department's focusing on the training, so course delivery again. And so first one I've got is around course delivery, so measuring that off of student satisfaction. I know it's not, yeah, I'm looking at whether or not that's measuring the KPI or not, the system. The other one is around course processing, the processing the learner information within a 24-hour period, within the specified time frame, and then the quality of assessment, which we run through a moderation process. Yeah, I'm not sure if those are within the system or within individual performance.
Good.
Could you say one of them again?
So last one is moderation, moderation or the quality of assessment. Training.
Training.
So for the training,
What's the details?
Details for this one, so moderation. So just put the word moderation just based off of the descriptions.
How are you measuring it? What's the KPI?
So the measurement in that is, wouldn't matter number at the moment, but a 90% success rate in moderation. So that's where the moderator agrees with the assessor's decision that that student should have passed.
Good.
So it's not certain if that's a system KPI or an individual KPI.
Okay. And then just to bear in mind is for everybody is make sure that if you look at the flow of the customer journey that you're measuring, you've got some KPIs on each one of those. So do you feel that you're not measuring in some of those areas?
So sort of three key areas. One is on the course delivery, one on the processing of the course results, and then the other is quality of assessment, which isn't necessarily directly related to the student journey.
Yeah. What do you see as potentially missing there in terms of the customer journey, the customer flow?
I can't think of anything relative to the delivery of the training.
No, so no, so it may not be delivery of the training, but all I'm saying is just make sure that if you recognize the flow of the customer through the whole company,
yes,
we need to have metrics in every one of these departments.
Yes, yeah.
So he's talking about delivery.
Yeah. I'll pick it up also. Sorry. Yeah. He's just talking about delivery at the moment. Yeah. Good. Anybody else would like to?
So is there some software that will hang all this in the cloud? Like, this is really valuable, and I must have done this or versions of this 3 or 4 times now, and you put it down and you don't go back to it. But like a smart person, Sean, would write some software and have it all in their system online in one place.
You still got to go online and have a look at it.
Yeah, but it would be easier to not lose it and share it with the team, and then keep going back to it with teams, and every time you check in, like
Toby,
otherwise we're
to
all
build us all.
reinventing the wheel, doing exactly the same kind of thing.
Yeah, Toby's all going to build us websites like his one.
Thanks, Toby.
But I'm surprised there isn't something out there already.
No, there is. I think you maybe missed a little bit of what we covered. Did you disappear?
Yeah, I had someone come in the shop.
Yeah, you missed the critical part.
Around that.
What is the price?
Toby, do you want to fill Steve in there with what I covered?
So there is a platform that you can subscribe to. There is a website system for setting up all of your processes on that. So you can either obviously use Google websites, or you can create your own WordPress site or whatever platform. But if you're kind of looking for something that's end-to-end, there is somebody who has developed something that has all of the infrastructure for you to populate.
What's
but
that?
You will pay more for it.
What is that?
What's it called, Sean?
System Hub.
System Hub.
Yep. So System Hub from memory, I think it's systemhub.com. I think it sets you back about $1,000 a year from memory.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at it now.
If you guys are interested in pursuing this subject material further, I'm happy to try and get him as a host, or as a guest into one of our sessions as well. Because that's his baby, is all about systems, and he's developed that process. So he's based in Australia. It just means he'd have to get up rather early.
I'd be interested.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
There is a video on his website that you can watch that goes through how his software works and so on.
Yep.
Etc. But I'm too cheap.
Yes.
Why don't you copy it, Toby?
Well, one could. From what I can make out, it's actually not that complicated. I guess the question is, with anything, there's a piece of software for absolutely everything, right? And or almost everything. And so sometimes I question how much, do you pay twice the price for the extra 10%? And it's each to their own. Because I've found that generally speaking, you can get 80% of what you want for 5% of the price, or 100% of what you want for 100% of the price.
Yeah.
So you just decide. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
I'm going to call 0800 number and get and get what Toby's got made for my business. That looked awesome.
Yeah, I might be able to look in the back end of my website and do it, I think, myself. I think it's quite a good way of setting it up and get the staff to just have a log into that area. I think I can do it on web widgets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. I'm respectful that we're now 8:35. So if anybody needs to go, thank you very much for joining. If there's any more questions, any more discussion you guys want to have, hang around. I'm happy to hang around for a little bit longer as well. Was this morning's session beneficial, useful for you guys or not?
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should focus on systems for a little while.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the hard work is you guys need to say, put this all down on paper. Don't worry about the software at the moment. Just put it all down on paper.
It looks like a lot of work, but I can understand why I need to do it.
Yep.
I also feel like there's hours and hours and hours of work. It's quite another thing.
What I found kind of quite useful is that once you've got to the kind of the next level, is just don't put on that page what you're going to put, but put what would go on that page, and then just go through and do that again and again. So as an example, it might be first email. So you just put the description of what would go on that page and then go to the next one. Well, that's what worked for me to try and do the whole kind of architecture of it. Because otherwise I just flipped out.
Yeah. So really important what Toby's saying there. And this is concentrate on chunking down from a high level, chunk down. Because the highest level is the easiest to do. And then you get down to more detail. If you start with the detail, you will 90% chance to bomb out on it.